Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Desire and Knowledge, Two Blazing Fires in Advaita Vedanta. I was looking for a video from this Swami. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. It starts with a T. I'm sorry. But when I hovered over it, sometimes it plays a little bit. And what it was playing on was, I was like, that doesn't quite look right. But I'm curious about the desired knowledge, and we're gonna find out what that thing that I saw in the preview is. So let's go ahead and get started. CC on. Okay. Desire and knowledge. Wait, desire. Knowledge is jnana, but desire. Knowledge, action, meditation. Why can't I think of the fourth one? Action, karma, jnana, knowledge. Why am I drawing a blank? Oh, bhakti, devotion. Desire would be more karma, isn't it?
Fire was of great importance in ancient Hindu culture, so it's not surprising that Sanskrit provides many words for fire in addition to the common term Agni. Some words for fire are highly descriptive, like dahana, burning, jwalana, shining, and saptarchi, having 7 tongues. Other words are based on fire's many roles. Roles like pavaka, purifier, jata vedas, the sacrificial fire, hutashana, consumer of sacrificial offerings, and vanhi, that which conveys blessings. In addition to these, an important symbolic meaning is expressed in the very first words of the Rig Veda. Om Agnimihile Purohitam. I worship fire, Agni, as the Purohitam, as the priest or mediator who consumes sacrificial offerings with its flaming mouths and conveys them to the heavens, to the deities being worshipped. In the Bhagavad Gita, fire is given other important symbolic meanings. The Gita famously refers to fire as Jnanagni, the fire of knowledge, the blazing spiritual wisdom that burns away or destroys ignorance of one's true nature. The Gita also...
Oops, sorry. I'm going to, It's interesting. So, Agni is fire, Jnana obviously being knowledge. So it's just interesting how wording is phrased, because like in English and Spanish, generally things are swapped. So this is knowledge, fire, or as when you translate to English, it's fire of knowledge. Huh. So I'm wondering if that's the same with the Hindu language as well. Let's go ahead and get started.
Or destroys ignorance of one's true nature. The Gita also refers to fire as Kamagni, the fire of desire, which represents one's passionate craving for pleasurable experiences of all kinds.
Oh, kama. Sorry, rewind it again. Kama, not karma. Okay.
In chapter 3, Sri Krishna tells Arjuna, Avritam jnanametena jnanino nityavarina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena nalena cha. Knowledge of your true nature is hidden by desire, kama, the enemy of the wise, as insatiable as fire. Here, the word used for fire is analam. Alam means enough. So, analam means that which never has enough, that which is never satisfied. Analam is a perfect word to describe fire's insatiable appetite for fuel. No matter how much wood is thrown in, this fire will quickly consume it all and be eager for more. Our desires are like that. No matter how many cravings we satisfy, we're always eager for more pleasure. New desires arise as quickly as old ones are satisfied. For example, after eating a splendid lunch at your favorite restaurant, you'll feel hungry again in just a few hours. The same is true for all desires.
I thought it was going to say something else. Like, no, I remember one time I ate so much I could not eat anymore. I felt it up in my throat. But no, he's right. After a few hours, you get hungry again.
After satisfying a particular desire, your appetite for pleasure is only temporarily appeased. Before long, you'll want something else. Such is the fire of desire. A never-ending succession of desires dictates many of our daily activities and molds our lives to a surprising extent. Here, it's important to distinguish such desires from others that lack the power to compel us.
I will say that is something I guess I didn't think about until now. Maybe I've thought about it, but it's just I've never thought about it this way, I suppose, which is the fact that when we look at our material body rewards us with desires. Chemically speaking, was it endorphins? Or am I thinking the wrong thing? But you know, when you do something pleasurable, your brain releases. I do believe it's endorphins, and you get that sensation of happiness or pleasure. And then when that goes away, I think it's endorphins. It's something that's very addictive, apparently, and you want more and more of it. And that's the reason why, well, obviously people do drugs. And then when you start getting accustomed to the drug, you need more and more to produce the same amount of endorphins. So, like, say you take 100 milligrams of drugs, it releases 50 milligrams of endorphins. All of a sudden you take 100 milligrams of drugs, it's only 25 milligrams of endorphins. You're like, what is going on? So you need 200 milligrams of drugs to do 50 milligrams of endorphins. Eventually that's going to also decrease. 200 milligrams of drugs is 25 milligrams of endorphins. You need 300 or 400 just to keep up that 50 milligrams of endorphins. Something that keeps growing and growing and growing just because you get accustomed to the pleasures that you already have. I don't know if that's how the brain works though with endorphins. I don't know if all of a sudden that you're I don't know whether you get accustomed to it or whether more receptors for endorphins open up. So before you had, say, 55 receptors and all 5 of them are filled up, you're 100% in pleasure. But because you're constantly filling those up, then 5 more rise. I'm not exactly sure, but the idea is saying that it takes more to feel the same way. So fact check me on whether it's called endorphins and whether it you get accustomed to it, meaning that you just need more and more drugs to produce the same amount, or whether you in fact develop a what do you call it? Receptors that more receptors for endorphins are produced because you're producing so much endorphins that those receptors need to capture them and to release them from the body. I'm not sure. I've listened to both ways. I've listened to things that have those effects. I'm just not too sure if endorphins work that way. It's one or the other, but the idea is still the same, that you need more to get more of a hit. I think it's endorphins. Anyways.
Consider a little girl who goes to
This was the thing that I saw. I'm like, this doesn't quite look right. Well, let's go ahead.
The kitchen at breakfast time, looking forward to enjoying a bowl of her favorite cereal. Fruit Loops. Inside the pantry, she finds many other boxes of cereal, but no Fruit Loops. She cries because she couldn't fulfill her desire. But suppose her mother also wants Fruit Loops for breakfast. When she finds none in the pantry, she'll simply choose another box of cereal. She won't feel upset because her desire for Fruit Loops was completely different from her daughter's.
Okay.
She merely wanted the Fruit Loops, whereas her daughter felt a need for them. This difference between wanting and needing helps us distinguish simple preferences from compelling desires.
Key thing there, absolutely. And this is something that I've also thought about, is the fact of wants and needs. A lot of people, I think they lose their concept of what a need is, and the only thing they know is wants. So even food is a want and not a need. Yes. I mean, it's, how do I say? Well, obviously Americans overeat, but at the same time, it's unhealthy. But also, even when they get hungry, it's not necessarily just eating a good food, like something reasonable, but also the food has to be fancy. It has to be, I don't know what fancy food is, so whatever fancy food you can put on there. Expensive food. Like, even though you can have two steaks that are cooked exactly the same, but because the price of one's higher, it has this social status for some people in America. Even though they're the exact same steak, just because this one has a brand name or something to it, they want to have this steak as opposed to that. So the desire for this steak is more, even though they're exactly the same, taste the same. It's just the idea. It's kind of like people with brands and stuff. You know how certain brands are. I mean, there are clothes, like clothes brand, for example, T-shirt. This T-shirt, $1, bought it. Has no logos whatsoever. It's perfect. But yeah, but some people will see, like, the exact material this shirt's made out of. It could be made in another shirt, but it's made out of, again, I don't know fancy brand names. Wait, there's one I can't remember. Anyway, just say Nike. I don't think that's fancy for me, but Nike. If they made it, some people will have that desire for it because of the brand logo, even though the material's the same, and will do the exact same thing. It's just, that's very much more for famous people too.
When a preference goes unfulfilled, there's no problem. But when a compelling desire goes unfulfilled,
Yeah.
it's a different matter altogether. We are driven to fulfill our desires. In some sense, we're like slaves to them. So, how can we break free from being compelled by our desires? Is there any way to satiate them all? Suppose I try to satiate this fire's appetite for fuel by throwing in a huge heap of wood. As a result, the fire will grow larger, engorged by all that fuel, and it'll consume the wood even more ravenously than before. This describes what happens when we overindulge our desires, when we pamper ourselves to excess.
I will also add to that. Now, the size of the fire is the the pleasure. So when you had this fire so big, you had that pleasure, and when that fire goes down, you're like, oh my god, this low fire of pleasure is terrible. It sucks. I want that large fire again. Now you have to do that exact same thing to get that large fire. Sometimes even then you want more because that large fire, you've gotten used to it. You want bigger now. All of a sudden this large fire is massive, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Overindulgence can turn luxuries into necessities.
Oh, there you go. I just Didn't realize I was going to say that.
For example, an occasional luxury, like a special coffee from Starbucks, is a nice treat you might enjoy now and then.
Sorry, I got the. I go to. I go to Dunkin' and I treat myself there. Just because if you build up enough points, you can also get a free drink, any size, whatever. So I'm like, I think I built up enough to get a free drink and almost have enough to get another one. So I'm guilty of that. But I mean, like, I should be a bit more aware. But I'm trying to find a way to recreate that coffee at home, and I just can't. I'm trying.
But if you indulge in this treat too frequently, it can become a necessity that compels you to drive to Starbucks every single morning for that coffee.
That's happening to me with Dunkin' Donuts every week. Whenever I go shopping for my groceries, I try to find a way to push myself to go to the town that Dunkin's in. Although right now, I have nothing that's pushing me over there, so I might not get it this week. I thought about this, honestly. Before I got off work, I was thinking about this. I was like, I need to find a way to go to the other town to buy my groceries so I can stop by Dunkin'. And right now, I didn't. There's not a long enough list for me to buy something, so I don't think I'm going this week. No, nah. Oh well. Kind of funny though. So weird that I was thinking about all this stuff earlier today, and it's just bringing it up. Well, I don't go to Starbucks; too expensive. That's rich people stuff. That's fancy stuff. I'm like the discount option. I mean, Dunkin's not discount either, but still, you get a lot more for your money. I think.
So, what's the solution to the problem of desire? Since satiation won't work, abstinence is sometimes suggested as a solution. Unfortunately, abstinence doesn't work either.
Moderation?
Consider a person who drives to Starbucks every single morning, compelled by the desire for his favorite kind of coffee. If he wants to overcome that desire and break free from its compulsion, he might simply refrain from going to Starbucks the next morning. But how will that affect him? What will he be thinking about all day long? Coffee! He can abstain from drinking coffee, but that won't remove his desire for it. If no more wood is added to this fire, it won't simply go out. Its burning embers will continue to smolder for a very long time. In the same way, if you merely abstain from satisfying desires, they won't simply disappear.
I will say there are some people, especially people who smoke, that this does work, but I think it's a very low success chance. Called quitting cold turkey is what they say. It's a phrase, but yeah, it can work for some people. It's very difficult. It's very hard, but some people have successfully done it. But I think doing it that way is a very low success chance.
They too will continue to smolder for a very long time. And long before the fire of desire finally dies out, you're likely to succumb to its insistent demands and kindle it again. So, how can this burning fire of desire be extinguished once and for all? The solution is found by going to the root of the problem. The root cause for desire, as taught by Vedanta, is ignorance. Specifically, ignorance of your true nature. If you truly knew your divine inner self to be innately full and complete, then you'd always feel content, and compulsive desires wouldn't bother you anymore. But failing to recognize your innate fullness, you'll naturally feel like something is missing. You'll feel insufficient, incomplete, inadequate. And as a result, you'll desire anything that can help you feel better. In this way, desires arise because your divine nature is covered by a veil of ignorance that prevents you from recognizing it as the true source of happiness, contentment, and peace. To remove that veil of ignorance, knowledge is required. Knowledge of your true nature. Knowledge that can burn away the veil of ignorance and reveal the vast fullness within. That very knowledge can be gained through the teachings of Vedanta. In chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna refers to this knowledge as Jnanagni, the fire of knowledge. Yathaidhansi samidhognir bhasmasat kuruterjuna jnanagnis sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute tatha. O Arjuna, like blazing fire reduces wood to ash, so too the fire of knowledge destroys all actions. Specifically, actions that are compelled by our desires. The fire of knowledge, kindled by the teachings of Vedanta, can eliminate the fire of desire by burning away the ignorance that causes desires to flare up in the first place. When the ignorance covering your true divine nature is removed, you'll recognize your innate fullness, and you'll feel perfectly content.
This to me sounds like using Jnana Yoga to correct your Karma Yoga. Karma being actions. Again, your desires are being fulfilled by your actions, temptations and whatnot. And by using Jnana, you can remove your bad karma. Or, at the very least, do good karma. Again, these are the two steps that I think that I follow, but then at the same time, I think everyone does all four. Well, all three for the most part. Meditation, on the other hand, is a different story. Your actions, your knowledge, and your devotion. Three easy things that we do on an everyday basis. Knowledge of learning new things, learning about people, learning about objects, things. Actions, how much you're caring, what you do in life, how you help people. Helping people not necessarily by means of money, but by doing something physically, honestly, or serving people. And then devotion, and this is how I look at devotion. It's how involved you are in helping people, how involved you are learning something, devoted to. You kind of need a little bit of devotion and all. Like all of them are so intertwined, for the most part. You can have knowledge without karma, but to have knowledge like that, you have to have devotion. You're devoted to knowledge. Or action. Devotion is like a mandatory thing, it seems. Devotion is underlying of all three, even including meditation. You have to have devotion to meditate, you have the devotion for knowledge, you have the devotion for action. So Bhakti Yoga is like a mandatory for all of them, it seems. Knowledge, you don't need to necessarily take action, you could just have straight up knowledge. You can have straight up action without knowledge as well, although I don't know if that's a good thing. That's something that Sadhguru talks about, how actions without clarity is I forget what the word he uses, but yeah, actions without clarity is a bad thing. And then meditation, again, something that's still kind of not too sure about. Obviously, it's something that's not been touched upon. Again, Raja Yoga, which I haven't yet done with Swami. Let's continue.
You will have broken free from being compelled by desires. So, Vedanta fights fire with fire, in a manner of speaking. The fire of desire, Kamagni, is reduced to ashes in the fire of knowledge, Jnanagni. That's truly wonderful. But Jnanagni can often be difficult to kindle, and until it blazes brightly, the problem of desire will continue. Have you ever tried to start a fire in a pile of wet wood? Dry wood catches fire fairly easily, but if wood is wet, you can strike match after match to light the wood and yet fail to kindle a fire. We are all a bit like this pile of wet wood, especially at the beginning of our spiritual journeys. Wet wood isn't ready to burn, and we might not be ready for the teachings of Vedanta.
Okay, I will say that's kind of strange to say that someone's not ready for the teachings. You gotta start somewhere. It's weird to say there must be a prep for Vedanta.
Even though you listen to Vedantic teachings again and again, Jnanagni will not be kindled unless you are fully prepared by undergoing the preliminary training needed to grasp the essence of those teachings.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, you still have to start and to get the understanding, to get the knowledge. But yeah, I completely agree. Obviously, you will not, by just listening and learning, but not practicing, it can be a bit difficult. Obviously, merely understanding is not enough. Practicing, obviously, and I get it. I listen a lot and have not, and I have practice. Not in the sense that of their teachings, merely because I understood them, and amazingly enough, I understood it and I practiced it in my own life, not realizing that it's a part of at least the four practices: karma, jnana, and bhakti a bit. So I do have some practice in it, so I do have some knowledge and experience in it, but I'd never realized it was those things.
A mature, prepared student is like dry wood, and Jnanagni is easily kindled. But most of us begin our studies lacking the full measure of spiritual maturity needed, and that prevents the fire of knowledge from being ignited. Fortunately, the teachings of Vedanta themselves help us gain the necessary spiritual maturity and preparation. Let me explain. If you try to light wet wood, it won't catch fire. But each match helps dry out the wood a little bit. By lighting many matches, the wood gradually gets dried out and will eventually go up in flames.
This dude does amazing analogies, I will say. He's spot on with them.
In the same way, repeated listening to the teachings of Vedanta helps you gain the necessary degree of spiritual maturity.
This is what I'm saying. Like I said, like obviously listening is not enough, but at least I don't think I said it, but this is what I meant. But yeah, you'll get there, because as you understand it, things become clearer, and then the next step is, of course, practicing it. So listening is listening is the first step. Next thing is understanding, and the third step is practicing. Yes. Now I don't know if I'm not going to sit there and say that works for everybody, but for me, I think that's my approach to things.
Slowly but surely. And when you are sufficiently prepared, Jnanagni will blaze forth effortlessly, destroying ignorance and revealing your true nature. Fire symbolizes spiritual knowledge in several ways. For example, these robes, traditionally worn by sannyasis, ordained monks, are dyed orange, the color of fire. Sannyasis cover themselves, so to speak, with the fire of knowledge. And those who burn with the fire of knowledge can ignite others, like using one candle to light another. Just like this flame can be passed from one lamp to the next, the fire of knowledge has been passed on from teacher to student for many, many generations. Each pair of lamps represents teacher and student, guru and shishya, and the entire line of lamps represents our parampara, our lineage of teachers. Seeing this, you're likely to ask, how did the first lamp get lit?
Kind of like the question that the last Sadhguru video with asking how did karma start? Let's see what he answers here.
How did Jnana Agni get kindled in the first place? As you may know, the teachings of Vedanta began with the rishis, the sages of ancient India, who were uniquely blessed with the ability to gain this knowledge independently, without being taught.
Just being observant and aware, you can obtain this knowledge. And again, I have attained some minute amount of this knowledge. Amazingly, honestly, again, I didn't know anything about this. I merely understood that I can control my body, I can control my emotions, and merely with that thought I was able to satiate my, well, not satiate, I guess ignore some of my desire or understand my desire. I always choose understand. It's like, and again, an example of this, when I was younger, there's a, I don't know if anyone knows this, but you know, there's Blockbuster, and then there's another place that's was kind of like a knockoff in a sense, where you could rent a video game, and I loved, you know, can't afford a video game, so we just rent it, and I try to play as much of it as I can, but you only get it for one day. So what I end up doing is when I asked my mom if we could rent a video game, and I look at the time, it's like it's already later on in the day. I reason myself that I can't exactly get the full enjoyment or full investment in that. So I say, no, I don't want it, because you know, I'd rather do this early in the morning so I can have the entire day to play it, and tomorrow the entire day to play it, as opposed to just some of the day today and then some of the day tomorrow. So I've kind of reasoned myself out of some of my desires. I guess actually reason would be a good way to say that. Reasoned.
They were the first to discover these truths. 300 years ago, no one taught Sir Isaac Newton about the principles of motion and gravity. He discovered those principles on his own, and he passed his knowledge on to later generations of scientists. In the same way, the truths first discovered by the rishis were passed down through the ages. The last of these lamps represents those gurus who are alive today. And the next lamp to be lit could represent you, eager for the fire of knowledge to be ignited. For students who are relatively mature, just a little spark or flame may be all that's needed to ignite the fire of knowledge within. But for students who lack the complete degree of preparation needed, there's a special benefit in studying Vedanta under the guidance of a great teacher who burns especially brightly. Wet wood dries out quickly if it's stacked up right next to a blazing fire. In the same way, students who associate with a wise, skillful, caring guru will quickly be prepared for Jnanagni to burst forth in flaming glory.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking, I don't know why I was imagining myself. I was that pile of wood, but there's just always rain going on. It's a never-ending storm going on top of my pile of wood. It doesn't matter how big the flame is. It's just drenched all the time. So very interesting. I like the way his ability to describe things with analogies and stuff it's just top notch, I will say. Like most of the videos that I've watched of his, he does a really good job of explaining that. Desire and knowledge. Very weird. You never think to associate desire and knowledge. But then again, knowledge can be associated with just a lot of things. I guess you can... knowledge of your actions, knowledge of your devotion, knowledge of your meditation, knowledge of how to meditate, how to take actions, how to devote yourself. But yet desire, something that I guess manifests in I was supposed to say the real world, but in the world, and I guess just obtaining the knowledge of who you are, or at least the knowledge to know your desires, that your desires are in fact desires, and not a need. It's okay, well, don't listen to me on this one. I think it's okay to fulfill some of your desires. It's good to have good desires, the desire to help, the desire to, well, help is about a good desire. That encompasses a lot of things. The desire to help, the desire to be kind, the desire to be knowledgeable. Just be careful about it not being twisted into a corrupt fashion, to think of yourself as, when you desire to be knowledge, to be arrogant and to be what else is there? Arrogant and to be snootish. I don't know what the right word is. Snobbish. To think that you know it all because of your desire. Desire to be rich. Anyways, I think I said enough. Anyways, that's my reaction to Desire and Knowledge, two blazing fires in Advaita Vedanta. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.